Hello and welcome to the seventh lecture in our series on the history of Islamic religion. In our last lecture, I discussed the attitude of early Islam to the Jews and Christians, that is, the monotheistic believers who are not Muslim believers. And we said that there's a bit of a complexity in this attitude. On the one hand, they are treated as believers in the true God, and therefore they should be treated positively. On the other hand, they're not Muslims. They refuse to accept the word of the true God and the words of the Prophet Muhammad. So the end result was that Islam formulated a series of laws, and I'm going to elaborate on that shortly, in which these people were treated in a different way than pagans. The monotheistic believers are protected by law. They get security, in Arabic, aman. On the other hand, they are humiliated, not persecuted, but they are not treated as Muslims on an equal basis. So they are therefore Ahl al-Dhimma, meaning the protected people, because they are the people of the book. They are the people of the holy book. They believe in the core, in the essence of the true book of God. We'll get back to the monotheistic believers, but I also asked a question about the attitude of Islam to pagans. Of course, there perhaps are less pagans today than there were in the 7th century. So in the 7th century, this was an acute question because the Islamic world faced a pagan world in addition to the Christian and Jewish world. The attitude towards paganism is quite simple. Destroy. Extermination of pagans wherever they are, if they insist on being pagans. Of course, if a pagan is convinced in the truth of Islam and he converts to Islam, then he should be treated on an equal basis as a true Muslim. Of course, in this case, he should not be exterminated. But other than that, pagans do not have the right to live. They should be killed. Now, the extermination by sword is led by a religious zeal, by a theological attitude. It is considered to be not just any kind of war, it is considered to be a holy war, or in Arabic, jihad. Mind you, the term jihad should be understood in two different ways. The essence of the word refers to a religious effort. If one makes an effort, for instance, to read the words of God, the Quran, and understand them, then he makes a jihad. It's a spiritual jihad. But the jihad I'm talking about, usually translated as a religious war, is a negative one, is one that eventually ends up by killing the non-believers. In general, already in the 8th century AD, that's quite early in the history of Islam, the world was divided by the Muslim theologians into two. And I'll mention the Arabic terms and I'll translate them. One part of the world is called Dar el-Islam or Dar as-Salam. The other part of the world is called Dar el-Harb. Let me explain. Dar as-Salam or Dar el-Islam, literally the house of Islam or the house of peace, are the territories of the world under the control of the Muslims. Dar al-Harb, meaning the house of war, is the other part of the world, which is not controlled by the Muslims, where Muslims are not free to practice their religion, because it's controlled by pagans, by Christians, and so on and so forth. So the ideal is that eventually the entire world will become Dar al-Islam. Now, this idea emerges in early Islam. In modern day Islam, Muslim extremists, as they are called, take this Islamic authentic concept and turn it into a flag, a leading concept. In their mind, they should infiltrate the Western world, Europe, the United States, other places, and impose, in peaceful ways, impose Islam so as to complete the turning of the world, the making of the world into a Dar al-Islam. This concept is quite interesting because in times we see art reflecting theology. And I'd like to turn your attention to an interesting bit of art that was found in a palace, one of the earliest Muslim palaces in the world. It's from the Umayyad period, the 7th to the 8th centuries. That's the Umayyad period. It's very early on. And it is located near the city of Jericho in the land of Israel. There's a palace there which was excavated decades ago, and a beautiful mosaic floor was found in the bathhouse, the hammam. Hammam is a bathhouse in Arabic, of that palace. Today, the area it is controlled by the Palestinian Authority, and joining with the Japanese government, a beautiful restoration work was done there in the palace, and the mosaic floor was re-exposed after decades. It was simply covered to protect it. So now you can actually visit the Holy Land and see the mosaic. A small portion of that mosaic was found in the private room of the Caliph. Caliph is an Arabic term, Khalifa, meaning the substitute, the one who comes, who leads the Muslim people after the Prophet is gone. And in the private room of the ruler, we see on the mosaic floor a beautiful tree, perhaps a tree of life or something else, I don't know. On one hand, you can see gazelles peacefully eating the grass. On the other hand, a lion jumps over a gazelle. Now that can be just an artistic imagery because we find similar artistic features also in the Roman world hundreds of years previously. But why was this specific imagery chosen to adorn the private room of the Caliph? That's the question. Obviously, nothing is new in this world. People reuse things. Why did they choose, the early Muslims, to adorn the private room of the Caliph with this scenery? A common interpretation, I can't guarantee it is true, but it's an interpretation, and it's a reasonable one, is that what we see is indeed the difference between Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb. Dar al-Harb, the house of war, that's the scene showing the gazelle being attacked by the lion. The lion are the Muslims. On the other hand, the peaceful scene, this is Dar al-Islam, the peaceful area under Islamic control where Muslims can practice their religion uninterrupted. So if this interpretation is indeed correct, then what we see is art as an expression of deeper theological ideas. And of course, for those of you who are familiar with art in general in the medieval period, in the Renaissance, you know very well that this is indeed the case. Art, many times, is chosen as a vessel to convey the deeper religious ideas. Now, let's get back to the non-pagans, to the Jews and Christians. And we already said that they are treated according to Islamic law. They're treated as believers in one God, yet they're not equal to the Muslims. But this is a general declaration. When one begins to control the non-Muslims, one has to have a clear set of rules, of tools. It's a toolbox that allows a Muslim ruler to actually control non-Muslims. So he should know the details, addressing different laws, addressing different aspects of life. And that urge, that need for a toolbox was already felt in the beginning of Islam. Already in the time when Islam conquered Persia and the Holy Land and Egypt and so on. And therefore, quite early in the time of a caliph, a ruler, Islamic ruler, called Omar I, Omar the Great. He is truly one of the greatest conquerors in the history of Islam. It's the middle of the 7th century. We learn from Muslim sources that he decided to create the set of rules that will help control the occupied territories taken by Islam. These rules are named the rules of Omar, and they determine how non-Muslims should be treated. I'll give you some examples for this set of rules, which establishes the foundations for the political attitude towards Christians and Jews. Mind you, originally they were formulated to refer to the Christian problem. Jews were not so important at the time. There weren't simply enough Jews. And of course, they did not have a state. So the question of how to deal with the Jews was a secondary question in nature. The important question is, what do we Muslims do with the Christian communities? So this set of laws of Omar are addressed at Christians, but later they were interpreted as laws that apply also to the Jews. What exactly do the rules of Omar, or the Omar's condition, what exactly do they say? We'll address this question in our next lecture.